Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran, mispronouncing Spotify as you bitterly curse it, or else a scrappy upstart, discovering that Open G really does make you sound like Keith Richards, this is your show, because ultimately, it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the last Friday of November 2017, and I thank you for joining us. Man, I had a great time on the road with Elephant Revival, so thanks to everyone who came to those shows all the way from Holland, Michigan to Fairfield, Connecticut. It was a blast. It was a great 2 weeks, and obviously thanks to Elephant and their crew. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the upcoming months, here's where I'll be. December 4th, I'll be at the Raccoon Motel in Quad Cities, Iowa to see my old friend Sean from Daytrotter, who has a venue now. That's going to be a great show. I'm looking forward to it. December 5th, I'll be at the Turf Club in St. Paul. The 6th, at City Winery in Chicago. December 7th, at Madison's Union Theater at the University of Wisconsin. December 8th in Grand Haven, Michigan, at the Tri-Cities Historical Museum. December 9th in Goshen, Indiana, at the Ignition Garage. December 10th at the Hi-Fi in Indy. Those indie shows are always fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Then I'll be hosting the Ann Arbor Folk Festival on January 26th and 27th. The headliners on those 2 nights will be John Prine and Jason Isbell, respectively. So, that's just a slam dunk for those to be great shows. And finally, in February, I'll be playing some shows and doing some podcasting from the Cayamo Cruise. So I hope to see all you guys out there. If you're a listener of this podcast, but you've never heard any of my songs, we should rectify that. That is my main thing, man. A good place to do that is over at Spotify. Just search the words Intro to Joe Pug, and a playlist will come up with 10 songs chosen from all my different releases that will give you a pretty good idea of what I'm all about. And you can choose if you dig it or if you don't. Either way is fine. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here are 2 quick, painless, entirely free things that you could do to help out. First, you could rate the show from within your podcast app. Don't ask me why that's helpful. I don't even fully understand myself, but I'm just told that it is, and it has been helping me, the reviews you guys have written so far, so thank you. Just open up that app, click on the reviews button for the show, and then click on the text that says write a review. The second thing that you could do also from your phone is share the episode with a like-minded friend who you think might dig it. You just text a link from the podcast app to a friend. Or, you know how I feel, man. Just go old school. Do an end around of the dark digital divide. Go outside the box, man, and just tell a friend, hey, I think you dig this podcast big time. Give it a listen. It really helps me when you guys do that because, there's no sponsorship for this show. There's no big machine behind it getting the word out there. So any gains in listenership that I've made, and I've made quite a bit, has been entirely due to you. So thank you very much. The simple math on those things, as always, is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. So thanks again for doing those. Okay, I'm going to end all the harassment there. This was the 3rd and final interview that I taped at the Newport Folk Festival, so shout out to them again. Thank you again, Brittany and Jay, everybody over there, for having me. And this is with a band that I've known for, as you'll hear, a very long time. And I love doing this. I love doing this episode and learning more about them. I think you will too. So without any further ado, I take you 3 months back and into Newport, Rhode Island, and with my good friends, Mandolin Orange. This is the first time that we're doing it in front of an audience. We just did one, which I thought went pretty well, but that doesn't mean that the next two couldn't just be an out-and-out train wreck. So I'll just remind you again, if things go south, this is, again, you can lay this straight at the doorstep of Jay Sweet and leave me out of it. Thank you for being here, and let's go ahead and tape the next one. What do you say? My guests this afternoon are from the pioneering Chapel Hill acoustic band, Mandolin Orange. The core of the band is Andrew Marlin and Emily Franz, who play mandolin and fiddle, respectively, while sharing duty on the acoustic guitar. They first met at a bluegrass jam arranged by mutual friends at a local Mexican restaurant, and it would have been hard to imagine for any bystander that night, tucking into their enchiladas verdes, how fruitful their partnership would become, and how far their career would take them. Initially, they self-released a pair of albums which brought them to the attention of Yep Roc Records, a legendary independent label out of Hillsborough, North Carolina, that over the years has provided a home to Nick Lowe, Dave Alvin, Gang of Four, and many others. Yep Roc released their third album, This Side of Jordan, which delivered them onto the national stage, which they were very much poised to take. Their ensuing releases, Such Jubilee and Blindfaller, have only cemented their place at the forefront of American folk and bluegrass music. They've appeared at the Austin City Limits, Bonnaroo, and Forecastle music festivals. They've taken the stage at bluegrass institutions such as Telluride, Winter Wondergrass, and the crown jewel of East Coast bluegrass, Merlefest. Rolling Stone named their last album as one of the best country albums of 2016 and called their song Hey Stranger a 3.5-minute heart punch that both soothes and aches. Pop Matters noted of their most recent effort, in a genre in which instrumental virtuosity is often overly praised, the members of Mandolin Orange managed to keep the focus on the strength of the material, not those behind the wheel. And Redline Roots didn't mince words when it declared, "It's really once in a lifetime that a band comes around like Mandolin Orange." Andrew is the group's principal songwriter, but Emily has a hand in arranging and interpreting the tunes, and we are very grateful and lucky that they chose to spend some time with us this afternoon. Please give a warm Newport welcome to Andrew Marlin of Mandolin Orange. And Emily's here. All right. Oh, man. Well, this was really touch and go, I want to tell the audience, because originally we thought it was just going to be Andrew, because apparently Emily was being fitted for some earplugs. Big catch, though, is that when you put earplugs in, you also need them to come out. And your earplug got stuck in?
Stuck in my earring here.
Oh, stuck in your earring.
I had to rip it out.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's okay. She doesn't need her ears for anything, do they, though?
Don't need them for much. Yeah. Well, that's a positive way to start the interview. So both you guys are from North Carolina originally.
Yeah. Yep.
Where's the town where you're from, Andrew?
What's that?
Where's the town where you're from?
Oh, Warrenton, North Carolina.
Which is north of or south of the Triangle?
It is north of the Triangle, right on the Virginia line.
Did you grow up in a musical household?
Yeah, my mother and my sister were both very good piano players. My sister still is. My mother is now passed, but she was a great piano player.
And so that was a focal point for the household, huh?
Yeah, I would very often. So she played piano in the church that I went to when I was young, and every week she would be arranging all these tunes, and she'd be working on it late at night, and so that's what I would go to bed to, basically, is her arranging these old hymns.
That's a great way to start. And you, Emily, was music a part of your household growing up as well, or?
It was a little more structured, I guess. My parents just told, I have two sisters, and they told all of us that we had to choose an instrument, then we had to think long and hard about it because we were going to have to stick with that one that we chose. So we all had to take music lessons and sing in the church choir, and there was a lot of Disney sing-alongs in our family.
And you really rued having chosen the bassoon so early on.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of what you were listening to then was religious music, Andrew. Did any secular music get through to you as a kid? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wasn't really paying attention to any of the hymns that were going on. I mean, like the music definitely worked its way into my, psyche or inner brain. But I was mainly listening to a lot of pop country as a young kid, and then really started listening to the Beatles. Just when I first heard Strawberry Fields, I was like, okay, this is it. This is the song, like the best song ever written.
So pop country at that time, is that more of like the George Strait variety, or more of like the I got a truck, I got a gun, I got a, like the listing things?
No, I got a truck, I got a gun, that was coming from my dad. Yeah. But musically, it was more the George Strait revival. Yeah, exactly. You don't understand, son. I got a truck, I got a gun.
Was the first instrument you picked up piano, or was it mandolin?
Well, I've never picked up a piano before.
God damn it.
But I think piano was definitely the first thing I ever messed around with. And then I bought a guitar from a friend of mine when I was 14, just on a whim at the county fair. I knew he had some guitars, and
you remember what type it was?
Dude, I still got it, and I actually carved a bunch of stuff on the back of it because I thought it was going to be my signature guitar. And it was cool.
But it turns out it was made out of plywood?
It turns out it's made of plywood, and it wouldn't stay in tune, and nobody cared about anything that I carved on the back of it. But yeah, it was an old Epiphone.
Old Epiphone.
Yep.
Back when Epiphone was good.
Mm-hmm. It was the Epiphany.
That was the Epiphany. So, was there anything, I know you were saying that Strawberry Fields and the Beatles were something that was affecting you, but was there any other modern music that was getting through to you and affecting you at that time?
Pearl Jam.
Yeah, man.
Dude, Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I've been doing this show for a while, and I've asked people that question, and I cannot believe that you're the first person to name check Pearl Jam, because that is some great stuff, and it's also written, my understanding, is that it's written in a pretty unique way, and that, the band and guitar player write the music, and then they send it to Eddie Vedder to finish the lyrics, so it's pretty unique.
Yeah, no, Pearl Jam for me, great songs. I'm just going to hold that. I think great songs, great singing. I think they had some really emotional music, which was great for me as a young musician wanting to get started and try and figure out how to process my emotions. I think the younger you are, the harder it is to process the changes you're going through, while all of a sudden you want to be intimate with other people instead of just go hang out with them. And Pearl Jam was a really great band to dive into for that time period.
And was there any sort of dynamic with your household of your parents not wanting you to listen to secular music, or were they cool with that?
No, they were really cool about it. They weren't very strict parents at all.
Okay.
As long as I knew that there was a truck and a gun involved, and we were fine.
And how about you, Emily? What music was making it through to you as a kid in your household?
I feel like we just listened to a lot of whatever was on the radio, but I think I took a maybe more direct route to this folk Americana music, and when I was starting to play a lot of bluegrass, I think it was right around that same time that I started listening to the Dixie Chicks, and that was really formative for me, because I feel like I learned to sing by learning those songs, and learned to play the guitar learning those songs, and it was inspiring to me because I played fiddle in a bluegrass band at the time, and there was so much that they were doing instrumentally.
They were blue chip instrumentalists. Yeah.
So that was a huge inspiration for me.
And did you go further back? Were there albums besides the Dixie Chicks did you ever do a run of classic kind of folk or Americana albums that you were into? Or?
I feel like that came to me later. Thankfully, a lot of the people that I was playing in my first bluegrass bands with, they were the ones that kind of turned me on to more like Emmylou Harris, Nancy Griffith, Hazel Dickens and Alice Gerrard. So it wasn't until later that I kind of dug further back.
Well, I know you've been doing it for a long time because when I was about 21 years old, I was attending college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and we were doing a play called Dark Side of the Moon. And there was a bluegrass band in that play, and I played guitar in the bluegrass band, but no one in our theater department played fiddle. So we went around, I don't know how it happened, but we hired like a 15-year-old high school student to come in and play fiddle in the play, and it was Emily. And this is like 10 years ago. Yeah. Crazy. So you've always been a
hired
ripper.
you to play fiddle?
I don't think I was paid, but I was very, very willing and eager.
God damn it, Franz. Put me on blast.
We'll give you all the food you want. Just come play.
So talk to me a little bit about how you guys met and the genesis of your project. Did you know that this was going to be a serious band that you started, or did you just meet and start playing together?
I don't think we were taking anything too seriously at that point in time, but yeah, we met through some mutual friends of ours that have a bluegrass band, and so a lot of what we were doing in the beginning was playing traditional tunes, and then little by little we're working in more of Andrew's songs, which was really fun for me at the time because I had played mostly in a traditional bluegrass setting, and so I'd really learned how to play the role that a fiddle is supposed to play in a bluegrass band, and learned how to sing tenor and a high baritone. And so it was really exciting for me when Andrew and I started playing that there's a lot more choice involved in
Can you
how to
describe
play.
a little bit about how you view what the role of a fiddle is in a bluegrass band? Like, how do you think about songs?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the nuts and bolts of it is if the mandolin's taking a solo, then you chop the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Emily does a lot of chopping.
There's a lot of mandolin solos.
Well, hopefully you get paid for those to chop while he's doing
yeah.
it.
Yeah, she gets
We've worked
paid
that
by
out.
the chop, actually.
Yeah, paid by the chopper. Yeah.
No, but that's one really cool thing about bluegrass is that there is a very defined structure to how the music works and how the 5 instruments sort of play their roles. And so you'd have a very certain, your verse to do fiddle backup, and then your solo section on the fiddle, and it's just the verse or maybe sometimes the chorus. But when we started playing more original material, I realized I could do a lot more in between those super specific things. And then singing also, I didn't just have to sing tenor or just sing high baritone. I could kind of float between the parts because it's just the two of us, and that's been really fun.
So did you know off the break, Andrew, that you wanted to start doing your own material in this context? Because a lot of bluegrass bands' original material is not even a thought whatsoever. Was that always part of your plan, or did you just get frustrated and want to write stuff that you actually wanted to play?
Yeah, no, I was always frustrated, so I was always writing. And I started writing when I was about 14. And
Wow. Really?
started, and yeah, from there, found a guy in my hometown who was also like really into playing music and really into working on original stuff. And we were listening to a lot of heavy metal at the time, and so we were a heavy metal duo of acoustic guitar and electric guitar. And so he got a half stack, he got a Randall half stack, and I got a Marshall half stack. And together,
Didn't you play your acoustic guitar?
I played a Washburn acoustic guitar through a Marshall half stack.
God, that's like some insane clown posse shit, man.
It sounded incredible. It sounded so good. Luckily, there are no recordings, so I can say that.
But you were writing tunes for that, too.
But I was writing tunes for that, and it was a great outlet. It was very aggressive music, and it was an aggressive time for me. So I feel like I got all of my aggression out. And when I met Emily, I was still writing a lot of songs, but not really. I wasn't very confident as a solo artist, and so it felt great the first time she and I played together and sang together. It just made sense. She was really good at picking up on the harmonies and really adding to what. I was just playing like some Carter family stuff at this bluegrass jam, but it felt like a duo the first time she and I played together, even though there were other people playing, because she was so good at just joining what I was trying to get across. And so I was like, hey, do you want to get together sometime and work on some songs? And she was totally down. So.
And you guys start playing music around the Triangle at that point in Carolina?
Yeah, the Triangle is the Chapel Hill, Durham, Raleigh area, not just the Triangle in our house. We must consult the Triangle.
The legwork is something I've never minded, especially when it's in the service of a craft that I love. I don't mind changing strings, settling numbers with a promoter, counting in merch. I don't mind pulling a 4-hour driving shift first thing in the morning, climbing under the desk to reroute some preamps, listening to mixes 5 times in a row. I don't mind any of it. I consider rolling cables to be a low form of meditation. And like many others, I have an out-and-out predilection for packing vans. That being said, there is one piece of legwork that I'll never do again. Booking my own shows. In my experience, booking my own shows was simply one big, fruitless, mundane, intricate, laborious, soul-sucking bummer. If there's 2 things in my life that I thoroughly despise, it would be drinking hot coffee from clear glass mugs because it's not natural, and booking my own shows. In my mind's eye, I can still see the Excel spreadsheets filled with venue contact information. I can still remember the sinking feeling of negotiating from a place of negative leverage, the wild goose chase of trying to string together a Tuesday night play in Sioux Falls with a Thursday night play in Indianapolis. No thank you. Being able to outsource that responsibility has kept me in the game. I think I would have gone back to framing walls and hanging siding a long time ago if all that was still on my plate. You're about to hear Mandolin Orange recount their first experiences of booking themselves, and it sounds like it was pretty similar to mine. Their story reminded me of that wonderful scene in Eastbound and Down when Kenny Powers first walks into Ashley Schaefer BMW and tries to sell a personal appearance. Here, for your listening pleasure, is what I would consider to be the archetypal booking negotiation between an artist and a bar manager. Enjoy.
Yeah, I got a lot of star power, and I think it would make this night a grand success. And I think it'll only cost you $2,000.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay you $100.
Sure you don't want to maybe meet in the middle somewhere?
About $200.
$200 to come.
$200 cash.
When was there a tipping point where you guys, because I know all artists, you throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, right? And you try a lot of stuff, and then you end up landing on a project where you're like, wow, people are responding to this in a lot of a different way than they've responded to stuff that I've done in the past. Do you remember a moment where you felt that, where you say, wow, this is qualitatively different than projects I've been in before?
Yeah, I think, honestly though, I think we were still young enough at that point. We were both 21 when we met, and I think we were still both young enough that we didn't have all that much to compare it to at the time. We could feel positive feedback to what we were doing, and that definitely motivated us and made us want to always take things to the next level. But for me personally, I think I just didn't really know what I was involved in at all.
And that's why you have to consult the Triangle. Were there people in the scene there in North Carolina that helped you along in a special way that you can remember at that time early on?
Yeah, there are so many great artists that come and just live in that area. And so, yeah, I mean, there's this one guy, Jerry Brown, who really took me under his wing, who owns a studio there in Chapel Hill, who played in Bluegrass band for years. And he's somebody that I could always turn to give me very honest feedback, but also I think he was also very encouraging. So sometimes he wouldn't give me
total honest
Yeah,
feedback.
he wasn't totally honest. Yeah. But he also, I mean, he said the first time Emily and I played a show that he came to, he was just like, man, you should stick it out with her because y'all are, you've got something going on. And
it matters when you hear that from somebody you respect
it really
for the first
does.
time, because people can blow smoke, but when they're not,
right,
and that can get you through some tough times. And you do a bit of engineering and studio work as well. Did you learn that from this fellow, Jerry Brown?
I did, yep.
Cool.
Yeah, this is, I guess about 10 years ago, I wrote him because I wanted to leave Warrenton where I grew up and start really pursuing music. And he's like, well, I've got the studio, I've got a futon, you can stay on the futon and work with me in the studio. I've got a bunch of rental houses so you can also do some maintenance. And I learned how to clean gutters and replace gutters and shingles and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But he really helped me out, and it was a good motivator to get out of my hometown.
Changes your life.
Yeah,
Changed your life.
Absolutely was, yeah. A life changer.
I mean, when you're trying to take that first step out away from home, you need those two things. You need, where am I going to sleep tonight, and how am I going to make a buck while I'm trying to pursue these things? That's a big change your life.
Yeah.
Type of deal.
So honestly, I mean, obviously I listened to him when he was like, hey, you got something here. You should hold on to it.
Yeah, that's great. And so, when did you guys begin touring outside of just the Triangle area?
I feel like we started to try and get sort of touring regionally pretty early on, and we're booking ourselves for several years.
What was that like?
Oh, well, it wasn't very fun. But at the time, I don't know. I think we were just really taking it one step at a time. So any little gig that we got, like in the upstairs corner room of a coffee shop, if it wasn't in Chapel Hill, it was like super exciting. Like we were going on tour.
You tell all your friends, can't, man, I'm going on tour. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it was like Appomattox, Virginia or something.
It's true.
But it was ultra exciting to us at the time.
There was one time in Knoxville, I remember, I can't remember the name of the place, but I actually do remember the name of the place. I'm just not going to say it. But Emily wrote to see if we could get a gig there. And what did they say to you? It was like, cool, for how long and for how little will you play?
They said, what's the longest you'll play and what's the least amount of money we can pay you? And I said, I don't know, how about 3 hours for $300? And they wrote back and said, you're booked. Your slot is 4 hours and we'll pay you $200.
And we're like, hell yeah, man, good negotiation, Emily.
Yeah.
Way to go.
It's like, well.
That's an Ashley Schaefer negotiation. I'm going to give you $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was first getting started out, there was a website I'd use called Do DIY USA. And it was, I don't even know if it still exists, but yeah, you definitely play some nightmare gigs.
Yeah.
There was a place I played in Eau Claire called the Acoustic Cafe. Didn't get paid anything, but you got tips and a free sandwich.
And great exposure.
And great exposure. Great exposure, guys. But I came back one time to play it, and there was a new manager, and I played my set, and I said, cool, man, played my set. I'd like a turkey sandwich, please. And he was like, oh, sorry, we have a new policy for artists. Half a sandwich.
Oh.
Which, having a whole sandwich, I could accept having a whole sandwich taken away from me, but having a half a sandwich taken away is one of the more demeaning moments of my life.
It's fine, but I'm keeping my crust.
I'm keeping my crust.
Do not cut my crust off.
What were you guys traveling in at that time for those gigs?
We did our first couple runs in my Honda Accord. And then we took the big step up to a minivan, and that really changed the game.
You sleeping in the minivan, or you crashing with friends?
Hotel parking lots, air mattress in the back of the van.
Dude, there was one time in, where was this? Tupelo, Mississippi, where there was like a bunch of tornadoes going around and sleeping in the back of the Honda Odyssey. And the Honda Odyssey is just, I mean, I was pretty sure we were going to end up in Oz. And that was That was a time I was like, I'm not sleeping in this fucking van anymore, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to die in this van.
Yeah.
But mainly just because when you wake up in the morning and the sun's beating down on you, you literally probably are about 2 seconds away from dehydrating.
I never did the. I'm cheap about a lot of things, but I never did the crashing in the car or crashing at people's houses things. I always needed like a private space, even if it was a rat trap, which it was for many years. Like I always just did the cheap hotel thing because, man, the sleeping in the van thing is just like I was just a little too feral.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
He's one of those.
He's one of those. Yeah.
No, but I know what you mean. I think there were probably times when we had folks offer for us to stay with them, but sometimes what you really need on the road is you need some alone time. And so I think there were times when we were like, just took the van and stayed in the van instead of staying in someone's house because we just...
Yeah, there was one time we were going to stay at this person's house and walked in and looked at what the accommodations were. We were like, nah, we're just going to...
We're out.
We're good.
We slept in the van and then just like went and met them in their house the next day because they had a separate house that we were going to stay in.
Oh, my
So we
God.
still slept in the van, woke up, got up, went in the house the next day. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, man, this was great. Thanks for having us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, folks that offer a place to stay after shows are awesome, and this is nothing against them, but the dynamic is usually, you're on tour all month, but the dynamic for them is like, band's in town tonight, we're going deep tonight. We're partying down. And so it can be tough for you when you're just like, man, I just need to watch Sports Center, drink 3 beers and pass out. They don't like that.
Yeah.
How did you guys begin your relationship with Yep Roc Records? When did they get turned on to you?
I think, well, because we're based so close to them there in Hillsborough, which is right up the road from Chapel Hill, and so we knew who they were for a long time and had known other local bands who they had worked with. So I think we knew them for a while before we started working with them as a label, but I think that was part of what made it really comfortable for us was because we knew they were local. We were able to talk to a lot of folks who they had worked with and develop relationships with them before we were like signing contracts. So
Sure. And was there a moment then, because I mean they certainly took you guys onto a national stage, was there a moment then where you could feel something qualitatively different happening with what was going on?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing for us that made the biggest difference was because we did kind of slug it out for a while just ourselves. And it's really hard to advocate for yourself, and it's really hard to convince people that you're doing something worthwhile when you're the one having to tell them that.
Yeah,
you know?
and you also feel, even if you can't convince them, you can feel like a real song and dance type of guy,
right.
You know, like...
So it just gave us a lot of confidence, I think, feeling like somebody really wanted to get behind what we were doing. And it's been a really gradual sort of just progression for us of getting to do more and more things and seeing more success. And it's definitely not been an overnight kind of thing. And they've been really on board with that and made a lot happen in that context.
Yeah. And then you guys, I mean, what's really been interesting and nice for you guys, for people that don't travel a lot, you might not know it, but if you're a band that plays the type of music that you guys play, and there aren't a lot because you guys do the original music version of it so much better than all the rest, but you could just make a living, if you wanted to, playing Colorado 365 days a year. The appetite for string music, for acoustic music in Colorado is unbelievable. When did you guys discover what a Garden of Eden that is for your type of stuff?
It's kind of funny you say that because that Colorado, we didn't get there for a while. I think 2014 was the first time we ever played there.
Wow,
and,
okay.
Yeah, and so we had been at it for like 5 years at that point. And we had this show booked, and we show up, and the guy who worked there was like, yeah, the show's sold out, like 200 tickets.
Yeah, we were like,
and we had like never sold out a show in our lives. We had never been to Colorado. We had no idea what was going on.
Like, no, we're Mandolin Orange.
Wrong show.
Yeah. what's happening at this show? And he's like, yeah, no, it's sold out. Huh.
That is such a different feeling than showing up to the places that you booked yourself, and they're just kind of like not happy to see you when you get there. And well, that must have been a game changer, right there for you. Where was that? Was it in Denver? Or was
in Denver, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was this perfectly accurate indication of Colorado and just how much people love to go see some music.
There's gold in them there hills.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been my thought immediately. Before they left Rounder Records to found their own venture, Tor Hansen and Glenn Dicker heard a song that caught their ear by R&B legend Slim Gaillard. Gaillard was a prolific writer and performer who had shared the stage with the likes of Charlie Parker. He had invented his own patois that had brought the world songs such as The Flatfoot Floogie and Cement Mixer Putty Putty. But the song that inspired the two aspiring label heads was one in which he unintelligibly reads the menu of an Armenian restaurant. It was called Yep Roc Harisi. Founded in 1997 and based in Hillsborough, North Carolina, Yep Roc Records is an independent label that has become an American music institution. There were no defining characteristics, no scene affiliation, no genre loyalty that a prospective act had to have. They simply had to make music that Hansen and Dicker loved. And that ethos attracted an astoundingly eclectic group, from British rockers like Paul Weller, Billy Bragg, and Robin Hitchcock, to indie-minded Americana acts like Whiskeytown, John Doe, Dave Alvin, and Reverend Horton Heat. There's also a deep vein of power pop in their catalog, represented by Fountains of Wayne, Sloan, and local mainstay Chris Stamey, and a slew of local rootsy acts, including Chatham County Line, one of my personal favorites. I first became aware of Yep Roc when I was attending college at the University of North Carolina, because they were releasing albums by my favorite local band, the $2 Pistols. Their leader was the legendary punk drummer turned baritone balladeer, John Howie Jr., and I was then and remain now one of his biggest fans. The Pistols were classic honky-tonk with great songs and a great voice. Now that's a combination that sells in 2017, it seems like, but the Pistols were a couple decades before their time. The late 90s was not a seller's market for modern, non-commercial country. So I think that says a lot about Yep Roc. They heard John Howie's voice, they signed him up, and they figured out the rest later. And that's the spirit, I think, which they signed Mandolin Orange with. I mean, Mandolin Orange is ostensibly a bluegrass group, but whose principal focus is intense, original, lyric-driven songs. Of course, a band that unique would be best served by a label that is equally so. When you begin writing a tune, if you have time set aside to write, what does your day look like when you sit down to write? Are you at your place? Are you in public? Guitar in your hands, piano in your hands, whatever? Like, what does that day look like when you're ready to write?
We're very fortunate these days. When we're home, I can spend as much time or as little time playing music as I would like. And usually, I think when I write songs, it's between the hours like 11 at night to 5 in the morning.
You're one of those?
Yeah.
Really?
I am. I think I like to pretend that, and I feel like there's other people that have said this, that there's less mental space being used at those hours.
I haven't heard that.
And so that there are more thoughts that are just floating around, not being used up, and I can just kind of tap into those. It's kind of selfish of me, actually.
I really liked it. So, have you always been a night owl in that way?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You can just kind of get, everyone else goes to bed and you can kind of get some silence.
Well, I think I'm one of those people that I feel like if it's during the hours where people are out doing things, and if I'm not involved in those things, I feel like I'm missing out. So If it's between the hours where most people are asleep, then I feel like I'm the one who can actually generate the party, and usually it's a very sentimental one.
Sentimental party.
Yep.
Late at night.
And I can do some writing.
So what are you putting on, a pot of coffee at that point, or are you just cracking a beer? What are you doing?
Man, very lamely just putting on some hot tea and just, turning off all devices, because if you open Instagram once,
it's over.
It's over. You can't write a song.
You can't.
No,
you can't.
You can't.
It's just a fact.
Creative space destroyed.
If you start an idea and you open Instagram, just, pop open a bag of Cheetos and a case of beer, because it's over. You can't. Yeah. There's something so private about trying to get to that thought. You know what I mean? And you have to focus. So it's like you're following a rabbit through the woods or something. And if you take your eye off it for a second, you forget what the original idea was.
Yeah, and that's another. I'm glad you said that, because usually when I actually feel like I can write a song is when I can get the first line to the song. If I can get the first line to the song, from there I can kind of chase that rabbit and let the idea unfold itself. I never really ever sit down with one goal in mind. That's happened a few times, but for the most part it's just, let's just see where this idea will go.
So is that first line almost like, in your mind, like a thesis statement to you? Or something?
Almost. It's almost just, it's like you got to have a great opening line. It just has to make everything unfold.
Well, you got to have a great opening line, but your point here is that you start with your great opening line and go from there, rather than building a framework and then trying to get that great opening line.
Yeah, without the opening line, I've got nothing. So.
What are the greatest opening lines of records that you can remember?
Oh, man. Well, thanks for an easy one. I really like the song, Come Gather Round Friends and I'll Tell You a Tale.
Yeah.
When the red iron ore pits ran plenty. That Bob Dylan tune. I feel like that record, I've talked about that already this weekend as well, but The Times They Are Changing was one of those records for me that every line, every lyric on that record is one of the reasons I write songs, and I'm sure there's some Pearl Jam ones as well. What would be a good Pearl Jam one?
So when you're sitting down to do this from 11 to 5 at night, do you have a pen and paper in your hand? Do you have a guitar in your hand? Are you're starting with this first line? Do you have a melody married to it at first?
Usually I'll have a chord progression, or I'll find a chord progression, and I like to just kind of throw out random words when I'm writing songs that kind of get the meter and the melody going within the chord progression. Mm-hmm. And from there I'm able to almost just latch onto it and follow it. It's like there's a big dog and I'm just throw a leash around it and then it drags me along, And it's really, I think that's one reason I like to do it late at night as well, because I'm kind of in and out of being fully awake and not quite fully awake. So
I was just talking, we just had Pat Sansone on here, and he was talking about the need to not necessarily be rational when you're writing, and it sounds like you kind of touch on that there, like kind of being in a half wakeful, half sleep state. Maybe there's some parts of your brain at that point that are turned off, that it's good that they're turned off.
Yeah, I don't think it's the songwriter's job to, this is just my opinion, to completely outline the thought, the same way I think a great painter doesn't just you can't really see what's going on, it's up for an interpretation, and people can take away from it what they need to get out of it.
Well, and that can be a great exercise. You finish a song and you go, how many specifics can I now grab out of here, and the barn is still going to stand up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so much of the editing process is just taking out stuff that doesn't necessarily have to be there. I think a line. There's a great Townes Van Zandt tune, For the Sake of the Song. Do you know that song?
Of course.
It's like, why does she sing these sad songs for me? I'm not the one. I think that's such a great song. You don't really know. You know where he's coming from, but I had an entire conversation about that one song because he lays it out so specifically, but yet there's so much detail also left out of that song that, I've talked to some people that really identify with the person that he's talking to, and then I really identify with what he's saying. Don't hold that against me. But I don't know. I think it's great to not be too specific in a song.
I think I think a case in point example, and of course his name comes up a lot, but probably close to one of my favorite songs of all time is Visions of Johanna. And that's a song that has a ton of imagery, a lot of imagery, but not a lot of specificity.
Yeah.
And that, to me, when I'm kind of editing something or trying to get something into a place, it's trying to get it into that place where there's a lot of pictures being painted, but listeners are filling in those specifics with the details of their life, like not my life,
right?
Yeah,
so it's kind of fun to almost like figure out what the song actually is after it's been written, and sometimes I'll listen to a song that I wrote 5 years ago and it's like, I kind of feel this way about that song now, and it's taken on a completely different meaning for me, which makes it fun, and it keeps it interesting.
Yeah. And so at what point are you brought into this process, Emily, and how does that happen? Bring it to the band.
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking what you were just talking about. One of the most interesting things for me when Andrew and I started playing together, I remember the first song that you ever wrote after we started playing together, and we'd learned it and we were singing it and playing it, and then you started telling me sort of your thought process and what it was about. And I just felt so strongly like, no, that's not what that song is about. Like I had this completely different understanding of it. And
naturally her way became the real way, but
sure.
But I think that I'm really glad that we've had that experience, and it's happened with other songs too, because I think it helps down the line too then with sharing your songs with other people and with an audience. Sometimes people want to know what the song is about. Sometimes it means something totally different to them, and it's maybe not something that we can even identify with at all. But it's nice to just feel like that's okay, and that is what it's supposed to be like.
Of course, think about how many songs before the internet existed and you were a kid listening to stuff. How many songs that like you love the song, and then you find out years later that you completely misunderstood like 30% of the lyrics, but the message still got across,
right?
For the most part. Or maybe it was a different message and it meant something different to you, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
I think so much of shows and so much of albums are what an audience brings to it. I really feel like whatever an audience brings to a show and what they want to get out of it, 95% of the time, that's what it is. And it'd be hard for me to lift them into something or lift them out of something. It'd be hard for me to pick up the piano, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But
metaphorically.
And I think it's the same thing with albums too. They got to be in the right headspace to be there, and hopefully you've crafted something that will hold up to that sort of scrutiny or level of hanging their own details in it. But it's on them, you know.
And I think there's something to be said for just that feeling of mystery and wonder when you're listening to a song that you love and you just want to know so bad what they mean, what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And isn't it? I just think it's kind of cool to think that you probably will never know, and you're not supposed to.
See, that has like literally never mattered to me, like what the artist was thinking at the time. Like I've never.
It's, why are you doing this podcast, Joe?
I know. Well, thanks so much for coming out today. No, I'm very interested in the technique, but I'm so not interested in why somebody wrote a song.
Right.
Like, it's just like the last thing that I could ever care about, why you wrote a song. And I feel like specific genres of music fall into that, like they get really into like the backstory behind the song. Mm-hmm. I feel like certain artists who begin to believe in their own myth, like a lot of that, you have to read the biography to figure out who they were dating at the time to see like what. I'm like, I don't care. I want 3.5 minutes of this song delivering to me on a silver platter an experience of my own. I don't care, who Stevie Nicks was dating in the band at the time. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter to me. So that interface of you getting the song that Andrew's written and taking it to the band, do you kind of act as the band leader at that point, or do you both act as the band leader to get it across to the band? Or
I don't know. I feel like most of our songs take a lot of shape. We've been playing with the band for most of the last year, but I feel like we still try and really figure out the songs, just the two of us, and that's kind of our starting point with how the songs should sound, and then like slowly bringing these other things in as it feels natural, but always not. I don't know that it seems like we have a super specific direction ever. We always are just kind of trying to feel it out. And
so it sounds like a pretty deliberative album process rather than just jumping in, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, man, I don't know. There's so many ways to answer this question, especially depending on the song, you know. But
I think that's a good point.
And that's one thing that we've always tried to do, and I think Emily's really good about making sure we're doing this, is just always looking at our approach based on the song, you know. And I think a lot of that is due to, you know, her years of playing in bluegrass bands and learning how to play, you know, like just knowing the specifics of where to come in and when not to play and when to be involved and when not to be involved.
Yeah.
And some songs require a little more involvement, and some songs just completely speak for themselves, and you could do whatever you want to it and you couldn't mess it up if you tried. And, you know, I think there's some songs that are very just hinged on the arrangement, and that's what we've always tried to do, is always, you know, base solely what we do every time on, you know, this specific song. And
I think that's something that I'd like to grab onto there, because it's the same with writing a song than as arranging a song. It depends on the song. And just because you've written songs in the past doesn't mean you know anything about writing this song that you're writing.
Well, you've been
right
through
now.
the process of probably feeling like you'll never write another song ever. So
Well, I'm not going to, but but that's settled.
that's a sore subject.
If
you'd like to consult the Triangle, you're more than welcome.
No, I don't want to. I'm more of I'm just going to focus on Instagram, but but yeah, you feel like you'll never get to that inspired. Well, I always feel like I could write a song. I feel like I could write a song like right now. That's not the problem. What we're talking about is inspired songs that are, I mean, especially these days with how much music is out there. If it's not an inspired song, like, I think you're doing a detriment to the world to even put it out there.
Yeah, you're just adding another,
you know?
Yeah, you're just adding another song to the Spotify world.
Yeah. But yes, what we're talking about is never feeling like you write an inspired song ever again. And that is, it's just like we wear so many hats as people. You know, that place where you feel like you're an inspired artist, like on the edge of the world, and that place where you can spend 3 years, you know, like I was mentioning earlier, just wanting to watch SportsCenter and drink beer, you know, and how can that be the same person in one lifetime? You know what I mean?
I think that's one nice thing that we enjoy about the way that we have been able to play music up to this point. It's very songwriter focused, and I feel like Andrew kind of always has the last word, but we have this option of keeping it a really songwriter communication, or we can make it really duo-centric, or we can really, if it's got like a good groove and it feels like we should be playing it with a band, we can do that. And I think that having that freedom to express different songs in different ways is really breathes a lot of life into us.
Do you guys feel different about writing songs now and the purpose of your writing songs now that you have a platform and an audience to play to than you did before?
I don't feel too different about it. I still finish a song when I feel compelled to finish a song. I never feel like I should write or I have to write.
Really?
No, I mean, that's one of the great things about...
But you do get antsy.
I do get antsy, and that's a good thing for the mandolin, because it improves my tremolo when I'm antsy.
Yeah.
No, but I can always just go learn fiddle tunes, you know, or learn some old tunes, and there's so many great old songs out there that I haven't learned completely through, and that can always be inspiring. And so after, you know, really diving into one of those times when I'm learning a lot of old songs and trying to improve on my playing, that I'm able to come at songwriting from a completely different new perspective, you know. And
so you do like a lateral move of learning other songs and it kind of sharpening the saw with your instrument.
Yeah.
I think that's a great technique. I think I've had a lot of people come on the show and describe exercise as the way that they do that, but I haven't had a lot of instrumentalists on the show, people who are legitimate songwriters and legitimate instrumentalists. And man, I got to imagine it's almost like going on a jog for your mind and for because that's just a totally different muscle than writing a song.
Yeah.
Learning somebody else's.
I don't know if Andrew knows much about going on a jog. But.
No, what is this thing you speak of? What is a jog?
Yeah.
A yog?
A yog. Go yogging. Do you guys, because of the style of music that you play, do you feel like you're carrying on a legacy in a certain type of way, or is that not something that you consider at all?
I mean, I think the history of it is important to us, and I think the legacy that has already been created is important to us. So I think in that, the legacy continues as long as you believe in that legacy, And
what is that legacy?
I think just always approaching songwriting and playing from as honest of perspective as we can, And I think having Emily along to help me process my thoughts and help me edit my thoughts as far as songwriting goes, which is I need editing sometimes. You're going to edit this, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this isn't airing, but yeah. Well, and it feels a lot different than your metal duo, is what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, I think she keeps me honest because she sometimes will say, "I have no idea what you're trying to get at here, but it's a good idea. Keep going."
Do you? So when you guys are working on a record, if it's a 12-song record, do you write 12 songs, or are you writing 30 songs and paring it down?
Again, it depends on the record, and it depends on the songs.
Yeah.
Some songs, it's like, absolutely no questions asked, this one belongs on a record, we want to put it out because we can get behind it. And then there's some songs where, honestly, Waltz About Whiskey was one of those songs, I think we were talking about it last night, where it seemed like a joke song when I first wrote it, because I wrote it with a friend of mine, and we literally just wrote it to stay up while we were riding down the road. And it's become one of my favorite songs to play, and I think it's a really catchy tune. It's a good song that I would have never taken seriously at first. But I'm glad we recorded it and tried it.
Have you ever had a song that you were sure everybody was going to love and that no one loved?
All the rest of them.
Well, hey, I'd like to thank you guys so much for stopping by today, and please give a warm round of applause to Mandolin Orange.
That's our show for this month. I thank you for listening. Mandolin Orange's latest album is entitled Blind Faller, available everywhere digital music is sold or streamed. Thank you to Josh Brinkman for helping set this whole thing up. Today's episode was engineered and mixed by Matt Schusler. Research and editorial direction provided by Paul Barbagallo and Don Bartlett. If before we meet again, you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So, let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.